most of the assessments that are out there, people learn about themselves, but then they don't know how to apply it when they're working with others. Because you can't go, if I meet you for the first time or perhaps maybe if you're a direct report and so I'm working with you over time, we can do an assessment and get to know each other that way. But when you're meeting somebody for the first time, you can't say to them, can you fill out this 20-minute assessment and see what it says, and then I'll know how to talk to you. Right. You need to be able to adapt and to be able to connect with them quickly and understand.
Welcome to the TalentGrow Show, where you can get actionable, results-oriented insight and advice on how to take your leadership, communication, and people skills to the next level and become the kind of leader people want to follow. And now, your host and leadership development strategist, Halelly Azulay.
Welcome back, Talent Growers. This is another episode of the TalentGrow Show, and I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow. My guest this week is Nicole Jansen, and she's going to talk to us about personality types and leadership, how you should communicate with people of different personality types. She's going to give you a couple of shortcuts for how you can try to understand other people's personality based on the DISC model, D-I-S-C, and she'll explain all about it in the show. It makes it super easy to understand and very practical for you to use. So I look forward to hearing what you thought about it afterwards in the comments. But let's listen to Nicole Jansen on the TalentGrow Show. Okay, Talent Growers, this week we have Nicole Jansen, who for the past 30 years has coached and trained thousands of leaders to transform their lives and achieve extraordinary results in business. In her view, there is nothing better than seeing people excel and live their best life, particularly when they are elevating others at the same time. I love that. Applying her unique blend of business mentorship and personal mastery, Nicole's clients not only experience substantial increase in sales, team performance, and profitability, they also experience greater confidence, clarity, and personal authenticity through discovering and playing to their strengths. She's a certified human behavior specialist, business breakthrough coach, strategic intervention coach, and has been personally trained and mentored by some of the top business, sales, and leadership experts in the world. She's the founder of Discover the Edge and the Leaders of Transformation podcast and community, of which I am a member of that community. So Nicole, welcome to the TalentGrow Show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Haley. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really glad that you're here, and thanks for making time for the Talent Growers and sharing your insights. Before we get into some of the interesting aspects of personality and leadership that you can share with our audience, I know that they want to know a little more about you. So we always have our guests describe their professional journey very briefly. Where did you start and how did you get to where you are today?
Great question. Yeah. So I have kind of a unique experience of having parents that were business-minded, business-oriented people. My dad owned garage businesses. My mother worked in the garage business. And so I started off really early on in the entrepreneurial world. And then as I got older, I got more involved in the business, ended up partnering with them, and we built a very successful business. I've also built my own businesses alongside of that from scratch, and also worked in corporate environments. So I actually worked with a group of lawyers for almost 8 years. It was supposed to be a short-term project, which turned into a lot more than that. But working with them was a great experience because I had the opportunity of experiencing in my own life the entrepreneurial space, but now also the academia and corporate world and what that was all about and the dynamics that are part of that. And I've also worked with, through my coaching business now, I've worked with, like as you said, a lot of business leaders and owners and people that own large companies or that are somewhere along the way in developing in growing in their leadership role. So I've worked with executives in transition, people that want to grow and be promoted through their companies. So I've had a lot of experience in working with people. I'm very passionate about human behavior and leadership and where mindset plays into it. I do believe that we're all leaders, and it starts with leading ourselves and then being able to lead others through our example.
We are so aligned about that. And I know we share so many interests in common and similar mission, it sounds like. So our focus is definitely on leadership. And leading is so hard. When you're leading yourself, for sure, it's hard, and definitely gets harder when you're leading others, especially when you consider how different everybody is and how our personality differences play into that trickiness, that stickiness of trying to lead. So what do you think leaders can do to manage to lead different personality types effectively?
It's kind of funny. The way I learned about these personality types was a very personal experience. Actually, it was with my dad. I honestly thought as a child that his whole goal in life was to drive me crazy. So he was the difficult person that I had to deal with. And I remember I was about 11 or 12 years old, and somebody handed me we were involved in personal development. So somebody handed me a personality insights book, right, that talked about the different personality styles. And I was like so blown away, realizing that, oh my gosh, it's not that he's trying to drive me crazy. It's just our personalities are different. And when I started to dive into that topic and really understand it, it became part of how I approached relationships and how I approached leadership. And when I was working with, whether it be prospects or clients or vendors or partners or whoever, I always brought that in, but it started there. And that's what really ignited my interest in it. And so for me, it was natural to understand that different personality types respond differently. They communicate differently. So as leaders, first of all, like I said, we need to understand ourselves first. If we don't understand ourselves, it's going to be hard to understand others and to build an effective relationship. So first of all, we've got to understand how we operate, what are our behavioral tendencies. And then from that point, then we can understand how we lead and what the people that we're leading need from us. And when you lead people, how many times do we see, managers, people get into management positions because they were promoted for various reasons. Sometimes it's because they did their job well, seniority, they're very skilled in a certain area. And then they get into this management role and they get very little training on how to lead people. And so it's like they take this approach of, okay, treating everybody the same, but you can't treat everybody the same. And I said, I learned that early on because different people respond differently. I remember, and I use this personal example, I remember having a boyfriend of mine who was very outgoing and effervescent. It was my birthday. We went to this restaurant to celebrate my birthday, and he thought it would be super awesome to let them know that it was my birthday and then we could do their ritual. Well, their ritual was me standing up on the chair and putting a bucket on my head and doing dumb things, right? And looking like a fool. That was not fun for me, right? But that was fun for him. And I said to him, the reason why you thought that was a good idea is because you would have liked it. And we lead oftentimes that way, where we actually recognize people and we try to motivate people based on who we are, not who they are.
Yeah, it's like the golden rule versus the platinum rule. I don't know if you talk about that with people, but that always is so helpful to me as a kind of a reminder. That golden rule says treat everybody like you would like to be treated, and the platinum rule says treat others as they would like to be treated.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're treating people like they like to be treated, then it does require you to adapt your own personality style. But if you're the one that is looking to create an outcome, you want to build a relationship or get a result through, working with this person, then it's like one of my mentors says, the one with the tool or the one with the awareness has the responsibility to do something about it. So it's then my responsibility to adapt myself, not change. There's a big difference. Some people, get confused by this and think, wow, well, I'm supposed to be able to be me and be fully self-expressed. Absolutely. And when you're working with another person and your goal is to build a better relationship, be more effective in the team, higher performance, maybe the goal there or whatever, getting them to do whatever they need to be doing, work well together, then it's your responsibility to tailor your communication. I love what Tony Robbins says. He says, communication is the response you get. So if we want to get a response, if we want to build better communication so we can get a better response, then we adapt, we adjust, not change ourselves, but adapt to what it is that they need from us so that we can make that connection.
Yeah. It's almost like translating, right? Like I prefer to speak English. I don't prefer to speak French, but if I'm going to speak to someone who only understands French or understands French very well, And if I have the time and the ability to somehow try to adapt and convey the information to them in French so that they understand it, they're more likely to take the action I'm asking them to take, or to do things in the best possible way, or to follow my instructions. It's in my self-interest to translate, even though it isn't my preference or my preferred language.
Yeah, well, if you only speak English and they only speak French, and you speak English to them and they don't get it, saying it louder or getting more emphatic isn't going to help.
That's exactly right.
Just a tip.
Just say it more in English.
Yeah, it's like, let me say it slower for you. I still don't understand.
It's so funny. Absolutely. I totally agree. All right. So you try to learn. So it sounds like learning and understanding more about your own personality is the first step, of course, because then you know what your baseline is and what you're starting with. But the more that you can try to learn about what other people's preferences are, then the better you'll understand the curve of translation, the bridge you need to build. Like, what do I need to adapt from? What do I need to adapt? And to what do I need to adapt so that the communication is more successful?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are different we maybe talk about that just briefly,
Yeah.
Is using the DISC model of human behavior is just the one that I use. There's lots of really great tools out there. The reason why I like DISC as opposed to some of the others is because it is literally a tool, a resource that you can go back to and you can use. It's easy to understand, easy to remember, easy to apply. And this is in particular the way that I learned it, which is through Dr. Robert Rome from Personality Insights. So a plug for him and his company. I love what he's done in terms of the way he's actually taught this. He has 5 degrees, education and communication and several other degrees. And so he did this specifically so that people could use it to understand themselves, understand others, build better relationships, and more effective teams. Most of the assessments that are out there, people learn about themselves, but then they don't know how to apply it when they're working with others. Because you can't go, if I meet you for the first time or I'm perhaps maybe if you're a direct report and so I'm working with you over time, we can do an assessment and get to know each other that way. But when you're meeting somebody for the first time, you can't say to them, can you fill out this 20-minute assessment and see what it says, and then I'll know how to talk to you. Right. You need to be able to adapt and to be able to connect with them quickly and understand. So there's 2 ways of doing it. First of all, there's 2 questions you ask yourself. Is this person more outgoing or is this person more reserved? Number one. That's number one question. Second question is, are they more task oriented or are they more people oriented? And the answer to those 2 questions will help you to identify which of the D, I, S, and C they are. So an outgoing task oriented person, right, is the D. They're the dominant driver, doer, decisive, demanding, determined person. The outgoing people-oriented is the I personality type, and they're inspiring, influencing, inducing, interactive, impressive. They're interested in people. Then you've got the people-oriented reserved types, which are supportive, and they're steady and stable, and they're sweet. They're some of the sweetest people, kindest people you'll ever meet. They like the status quo, and they're also very sensitive. Then you've got the reserved task-oriented people that are cautious, calculating, competent, consistent, contemplative. If you notice, I'm using D words, I words, S words, and C words, so it's easy to remember and be able to refer back to. So once I understand that, and it's not to categorize or to pigeonhole anybody into a specific personality, oh, you're this way, but it's to better understand where they may be leaning. So if they're outgoing, they're going to talk fast, they're going to be more energetic, more optimistic. The reserved person is going to be a little bit more slower paced, maybe a little bit more holding back, reluctant. Critical thinking might be important to them, and discerning. The task-oriented person, they like form and function and programs and plans and all of that. The people-oriented person is more relational. They like caring and sharing and sharing emotions, their feelings, and friendships are important. So if I understand where people are starting to go, and lean, then I can adjust to because there's a primary motivating factor that all of them have, right? And we're a blend of all 4 personality types. There's usually 1 or 2 that are a little bit more stronger, more emphasized in us. And so then it allows me to go, this person I'm meeting is more outgoing, more task oriented. This is perhaps, let me test it. Let me lean my communication, the words, the language that I'm using, even my body language to be able to, and tone and speed and all that, to be able to adjust to what they're looking for from me. I had a guy once who, financial advisor, and he was a really detailed C personality type, very calculating, cautious, analytical type, and also S personality type, very soft-spoken, reserved. And he wanted to present this plan to me, a financial, plan, retirement plan. And I'm a D personality, is my strongest trait. And so, I said to him up front, I said, look, you know what, just tell me, how do we get to the outcome? What do I need to know? Give me the short, but this is why they have executive summaries, by the way. It's because a lot of C-level executives, the leaders of organizations, Ds have a tendency, they like to lead and be in charge. They don't want to read all 40 pages of your, wonderful plan. They want to get the executive summary, and that'll determine whether or not they want to read any more, but they want to get it short and sweet. So I basically said to him and gave him some help and said, look, just give me the straight, how do we get to the outcome? I don't need to know all the details. Just give me the, straight skinny. Well, 2 hours later, and I was, I kept hinting towards it, but he felt that he needed to read all the fine print and all the stuff. And I said to him, look, can I give you some feedback? I mean, you've literally had me in and out, right, of this conversation, over the last 2 hours, and you've spent so much time and it's so valuable. I appreciate the information, but it's because I understand personalities. But if I didn't, you probably would have lost me a long time ago, right? Because I don't need all this data. You need all this data, because that's important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you're saying that obviously the more we know someone, the better we can try to assess what their style is. But it sounds like, pretty quickly you can guess on those two spectrum lines, you can guess which quadrant they're in.
Yeah. And most of us actually understand that people are different. The question is not that we're different, because we know we're all different. It's how are we different? That's where learning and understanding it, you can quickly pick it up. I meet somebody and they lean in and, they're like, hey, how are you? And then I already know that they're likely a little bit more outgoing. If they're holding back, they're more reserved. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. It just means that that's their natural tendency, that maybe they're holding back, a little bit more reluctant. If they're task oriented, they're going to be focused on, you can look at their office. You can see they're very functional, very organized. They're task oriented. A people oriented person is going to have lots of pictures. Even the way we dress, a task oriented and specifically more reserved person is going to be dressed probably immaculate, right? Because they're into process and procedure, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and they're very thoughtful, and and so they drive a conservative car that that is practical, right? And if they're a little bit more outgoing and task oriented, and they're more on the driver's side, the dominant type, then they might be driving the SUV or the Mercedes, so you can see when you get to know people and to see how they show up, you can notice the I personality type is probably going to become, maybe they might be a little bit more colorful. They're going to be more expressive in their facial expressions. They're more open. They want to express their feelings. A supportive type is going to be somebody that's going to be a little bit quieter, more gentle, soft-spoken. They're going to listen more than they talk because they're reserved and they're people-oriented, so they're great listeners. Once you get the hang of this, you realize, wow, we're all different. And the beautiful thing about building teams is that all of these personalities have equal value and equal importance in a team. And so they bring something different to the team. And so, and some teams are going to need a little bit more of one versus, personality versus the other, right? Like sales teams have a tendency to attract more of the Ds and the Is because they're outgoing and people-oriented, task-oriented. They're driving. They like to talk and lead and be in charge. The reserve types tend to lean more to roles that allow them to be more backstage. So I think of front stage, backstage, like they like to be behind the scenes as opposed to in front of this, in the front stage. So, they kind of gravitate towards different roles. But this also works for even understanding if a role is right for you and if a role is right for a person that you're bringing onto your team, is to look at their personality, not just their skill set, not just their experience, but does it fit their personality, and does the environment fit their personality? If it's super fast paced and high, intensity, stress, and they're an S personality type at some point, they may in the beginning be able to bring some of that calm personality into it. But if they're not strong enough, not strong enough, they're strong, different type of strength. But if they're not able to manage that, it can actually wear them out, is what it can do. And I've seen that happen where very talented people, it's just that just didn't thrive in a certain environment because that environment was driven by strong D personality leadership types, and it wore them out. They went to another environment and did really, really well.
What's the best way to motivate each of the personality types? And we can't get into it in great detail, but because you're saying adapt. So what are some ways you'll adapt?
You can motivate them by understanding what is their motivation. So for the D personality type, they like challenge, they like choices, and they like control. So like to lead and be in charge. So their motivation is actually being in control, if you want to summarize it, and they want to get results. Okay, they're really motivated by getting results. And that's why they like to be in control. They want to control the results. The I personality type likes recognition. They like popularity. They like approval. So for them, that's where it's really important how people perceive them, right? The D is like, I'm going to get results. The I is like, how do I look? Right. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them actually are close to you in Hollywood. So the I personality types. So the S personality type, they like appreciation and security, harmony. So they're the ones that bring harmony to the team, where the D drives the results. The I makes sure everybody has fun. The S will make sure there's harmony in a team. And the C personality type likes quality answers and excellence. And so they're going to bring their process and procedures and the right way to do things to the team. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I want us to get the sense of what's the bridging, what's the translation that needs to happen? Because, if you need to get to results, or if you need something done by the deadline as a leader, there's only so many ways that can be done. And so, the way that you can convey it to the person in the way that meets their needs or adapts to their motivations can help you get the results. But sometimes it feels like there's not that many ways to look at this.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. You're absolutely right. So what do most leaders, what do they want to do? What are they required to do? They need to get a certain result, bottom line, right? Yeah. So, and no matter where they are in the organization, they have a certain result that they need. And this goes for us too, right? And how do we motivate ourselves in understanding what's important to us? But when talking about other people, so let's say, for example, if you're a D and you have C personality types or I or S personality types on your team, there's 4 ways, or there's multiple ways, infinite ways to say the same thing. So if I'm talking to a C personality type and I'm saying, look, we need to get results here. We got to get things done and, make it happen. They're like, okay, whatever, right? But what really motivates them and how I can get them on board is saying, look, we need you to help us to do this in a way that is going to deliver excellence to the customer. What's the process that's going to get us where we need to go, right? We need to get this done in a certain amount of time because the client's expecting it. That's the expectation, the commitment we've made to them. But they also need the C personality, little side note, C personality types need enough time. So oftentimes D personality types will be like, okay, I need this yesterday. And the C's going, I can't do it with quality. Mm-hmm. In like, you got to give me a little bit more leeway, a little bit more lead time, I should say, to be able to get the job done and do it with excellence. Because if you expect them to just throw it together, they're not going to be happy and they're not going to do a really good job. And over time, they're going to resent you for it because they're not allowed to do it the way they want to do it. If I'm working with the I personality type, I'm connecting the result to fun and how they're going to look. Oh my gosh, when we get this done, the client is going to love us. They're going to love us when we get this done, or what I'm using that as an example, but there's many examples. And then the S personality type is, again, appealing to what is important to them. So what you do is you tie what's important to them to the result that you're looking for. And you translate it, like you were talking about earlier, you're translating it into French for them to go, oh yeah, that makes sense, mm-hmm. right? We're going to do this. We're going to work together. Let's all work together. You bring so much value to this team and making sure that we're all doing what we need to be doing. Really appreciate your value. Important piece with this is with the S personality types is where you appreciate them. And they talk about that they need that appreciation. It's that one-on-one personal attention to them. It's not putting them up in front of an audience and saying, hey, congratulations to so-and-so for doing this. That will freak them out and they will not appreciate you bringing them up on stage and doing that. The I personality type is like, thank God, finally I get my chance in the spotlight. But that's not the S personality. So again, same thing is like, I really appreciate what you bring to the table here and how you work together. Your support of what we're doing is so appreciated. You make sure that the little finer details all get done. And that makes the difference. And our clients really appreciate that.
Yeah. And you can even like write them a card probably, right? And they'll like cherish it forever. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, do you have a couple of short ways to describe what you think are the most important qualities of a leader?
So, there's lots of qualities that people talk about, inspiration and motivation and all this. I'm going to go with something that I don't know that people talk about as much, and that is presence. Now, I'm a business coach and a life mastery coach as well, because it all ties in, right? How we do anything is how we do everything. We're leading in our lives. And, but presence, all of this is predicated on, you got to be present with another person to understand, to spend the time to invest in understanding who they are and listen and pay attention to the indicators of them telling you what's important to them and what's not. And so I would say one of the things that I've experienced in working with leaders over all industries and backgrounds and so forth is they have the ability to pay attention. Yeah, they drive results. Yes, they know how to inspire people. But the reason why they're able to do that is because they're present and people get that they care about them.
Say more about how does one, let's concretize it. How do you show presence or how do you act in a present way?
Most people listen and are just basically, they're not listening. They're not actively listening. They're just waiting for the person to finish so that they can say something else, their next thing.
Yes.
So they're so busy in their head. So I would encourage a leader, and this is not just because I'm a coach, but I would encourage any leader to have somebody that you can go to, whether it's a coach or a mentor or some way or meditation of some way of getting all the inner dialogue in your own head quieted down, so that, all those little voices and the stuff that's going on in your head can be silenced enough that you can actually hear through the noise. You can hear what somebody else is actually saying and what they're not saying. So literally it is listening. It is being still. There's a saying, be still, right? Be still, be quiet your mind. Lots of different ways people say it. Be mindful. What they're basically saying is, put yourself in a state of being present in the now, present with the other person. You're listening for what they're saying, what they're doing, what they're not saying. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it's that intuition that comes in and how do you know how to say the right thing? Sometimes everybody knows how to do this. Somebody that you are interested in, maybe a significant other or a child, and you stop and you listen to them. You can build such an incredible connection. You hear things that you didn't hear before when you were so busy working your agenda.
Yeah, I like it. I think the distinction maybe is that comes to me is sort of the word present as opposed to past and future, which is sort of like us being in our head, right? To think about the past or to think about the future, like what you want to say next or what this means down the road, means you're taking yourself out of the present, which is where you have to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Oh, Nicole, this has been so much fun and we're pretty much out of time. So before you give one specific action and then share how people can stay in touch, what's new and exciting on your horizon these days?
Well, I'm really excited about the podcast that I have, Leaders of Transformation. We just celebrated 200 episodes. You're going to be on the show soon. I'm really excited about that.
Congratulations on it.
Thank you. Yes. And amazing difference makers, world changers that I've had the opportunity to interview and showcase what they're doing. So that's really fun. I'm also working on a project that is designed to transform the podcasting world. And so I'm excited about that as well. But it's really all designed to help people to get their message out there. And like what we're talking about is leadership and growing their strengths or talents, the TalentGrow, like your show. I love that concept. It's like, I'm all about helping people to be who they were created to be, to maximize their potential. And so these are some of the ways that I get to do it.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It's exactly what I say. Help people maximize their potential. So it's fun. We're kindred spirits. And congratulations again on your show. And I'm looking forward to being on it too. All right. Well, what's one specific action that our listeners can take today, tomorrow, this week that can help them upgrade their own leadership or communication skills?
I was thinking about that actually prior to this. And there's so many, again, so many actions you can give people. I would say that when we're talking about presence and we're talking about understanding yourself and others, is to recognize this and just remember this as you're listening to what people are saying to you. Remember that people don't do things to you. They do things for themselves. And that doesn't mean that they're being selfish. It just means that they're the center of their own universe. And so they're actually projecting out, they're communicating through their own personality style. So just like with my dad, and I would get frustrated with him because I thought he was trying to drive me crazy, and he wasn't. He was actually just communicating to me in his own way. And if we recognize that and we choose fascination over frustration and curiosity over criticism, it will go a long way for us to in building our communication skills and our ability to lead others.
Perfect. Absolutely. And I agree. Well, how can people, I know they're going to want to learn more from you and about you. So we're going to put everything in the show notes, but what are the best ways to connect?
Sure. So I have two websites. The one website, which is for my coaching business, and there are some assessment tools on there. You can check them out as well. That's discovertheedge.com. And then my podcast, which it does link also to my podcast, but the direct link to the podcast website is leadersoftransformation.com. And of course, I'm over all across social media. You can find me there as well.
Okay, very good. Well, we will link to that in the show notes. And Nicole, it's been fun talking with you. Thank you for coming on the Talent Grow Show and sharing some of your insights with talent growers.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I hope you enjoyed that, talent growers. And I hope that you'll take action, because you know that only through taking actions will you actually develop and grow and apply your new learning. So take action on what Nicole has suggested to be more present. And another action I'd like you to take is to go over on to my website, talentgrow.com, and from the show notes page, grab the free tool I've created just for listeners of the show. It's called The 10 Mistakes That Leaders Make and How to Avoid Them. So today we talked about some common mistakes, and that tool, I teach you about mistakes that leaders make. You might be making those mistakes. You're probably not aware. And so I hope that you'll go grab that, and that'll also allow you to stay in touch with me and learn about all of the new shows that come out and other short tips and information you can use. I don't make it very long. It's easy to read, and it comes into your mailbox every week. Well, this is it for another episode of the Talent Grow Show. I am Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at Talent Grow, and I'm so glad you've listened. Until the next time, make today great.
Thanks for listening to the Talent Grow Show, where we help you develop your talent to become the kind of leader that people want to follow. For more information, visit talentgrow.com.